her coming from Colorado Springs, Colorado, but every time I'm in the Bay, I feel like home. I am blessed and privileged to be here on a program amongst all these accomplished women. Nowhere in your lane, but I'm just glad to be in a room with you. And I'm really glad to be here today because here at Mount Trinity in San Francisco is when I did my first religious poem. I had writer's block for 20 years. And I came here to a Virtuous Women of God seminar. And I met the Williams sisters and I saw, wasn't Pastor White yet, but she was in the making. And I saw the women do a whole program and I said, I want to be a part of that. And I went up to Cynthia and I said, you guys are preaching or teaching in you. You are anointed. And she said, no. And then a couple years passed and they kept inviting me to return. And I went up to her and I said, when you go follow your calling? And she said, when you follow yours. And I said, ain't nobody just talking about me, we talking about you. And so from that day on, I continued to start writing religious poems and speaking in church and doing motivational stuff. And a couple years ago, I was so happy to see that Cece finally followed her calling. Went back to school, and now that I'm in Colorado Springs, I'm seeing how hard it is for women in the ministry. I don't know what my calling is besides doing my poetry and speaking. And someone said, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. So until God tells me different, I'm going to continue doing my poetry. I wrote something special for today. And Sister Arnold said, but you got to do that poem. I said, Sister Arnold, I've been doing that poem for 8 years. I need to do something different. So I came here with the intent of doing my new poem. Amen. But this week, the devil was busy, and it seemed like every woman in my life was going through crisis. With their kids, their job, their family, their health. And I said, how can I help them? And so yesterday, I said, I'm doing my new poem. I'm not listening to Sister Arnold. And then I got a call from my girlfriend at midnight that her brother was murdered in New Orleans. And I couldn't comfort her. I sat on the phone with her for 2 hours, but I lost my sister 2 years ago for murder. And I didn't know what to say, so all I could do was just hold the phone. And when we finally got off, a voice said to me, use your gift to help how you can. And I didn't know what that meant. So I got up at 4 o'clock this morning and practiced my new poem, right? And a voice came back and said, use your voice the way that you can. And so I woke up today and said, I got to give it up and give in, and I'm going to do that poem. And it's even special today because I have my stepmom with me, who was here when I did it the first time. Not memorized, a bunch of pieces of papers. She was here with my dad. And 6 months later, my dad was diagnosed with deadly cancer. And a year later, he was gone. But because women like my stepmom and Sister Arnold and all the women who've been in my life to help support me and show me what a virtuous woman looks like, I'm going to do that poem today in hopes that I'll help and touch someone else. So it's called My Lord, My Testimony and I. So I had doubts in my mind because it seemed the answers I could never find. Although I tried, I just couldn't conceptualize why, oh why, he would make that type of sacrifice just to change this tainted soul of mine. And so I cried and I cried. From my pain, I could no longer hide. Although I did try to keep it bottled inside. But God, he was kind. He said, hold on, Nikisha, these things take time. For I am divine. You may not see it now, but there's always a reason to my rhyme. And so then I couldn't deny that I needed a little more insight. And God, he was kind, for he knew my vision wasn't right. And then he lent me his eyes, and suddenly I began to regain my sight. And I got chills in my spine. And I had to get wise, for I was so afraid I was headed towards my demise. But God said, don't worry, everything will be all right. For he already had a plan, and it was perfect, it was airtight. And I wanted to believe, which meant I had to continue to fight. And I looked at that devil and said, not tonight. But I had to remain humble and I had to swallow my pride. And no matter how much I stumbled, the Lord still agreed to let me inside. He said, but first, all his rules I had to follow and obey. And there are no other answers but to simply comply. And not until then would my fears truly subside. But I was stubborn. I still didn't get why. So God, he continued to send me more signs. But this time it wasn't obvious, it was subtle, it was intertwined. So deep in my conscience, I thought he was playing with my mind. But you know what? God don't play games. Although he is clever and he is wise, and he will name names, and he'll call you out every time. He said, don't you listen to that devil, for that devil is a lie. And you can't worship two leaders, because our worlds don't coincide. And so you can't have it both ways, and there is no compromise. And I thought, yes, God, I finally get it. I took over my life. God said, girl, you ain't finished. You're not going to get it on the first try. So I had to seek to find all the clues he left behind. Because he said my path would be clear if I read between the lines. But you know what? That devil, he thought I still had doubts. And he continued to pursue me. And he offered other options as he tried to confuse me. But this time I was prepared. And I refused to let him use me. And I was no longer scared. And I said, Lord, I choose thee. So today I had to testify. Share with you my struggles, my demons, and my strife. Because now I feel so much joy I can't hold it inside. For I finally realized that my Lord is the only reason I'm alive. So I looked up to the sky with my hand held high. And I said, Father, I appreciate the wisdom you provide. And I will continue to climb and reach the heights you have defined. For I know that I was created in your perfect design. And I will always shine as long as I'm shining in your lights. For I realize that your love is what's giving me my flight. And I certify I will worship you with all my might. Because you gave me back my voice. And I will never again drop my mic. And I.